12 apostles. Everyone knows this. 12 men at the Last Supper. 12 foundations of the New Jerusalem. 12 is the sacred number, the number of order, the number of the church. Except there is a problem with this story. A massive problem the institution has spent 2,000 years covering up. There was a 13th. This is not speculation. This is not a modern theory. This is documented in multiple ancient texts that the church tried to burn but failed to completely destroy. The 13th apostle wasn't just another disciple. This was the one Jesus gave his deepest teachings to, the one who understood what the 12 could not grasp, the one the other apostles were jealous of because Jesus loved this person more than them. Mary Magdalene. The church rewrote her as a prostitute, a fallen woman, a sinner who needed saving. But the original texts tell a completely different story. She wasn't a repentant sinner, she was an initiated master. And she carried knowledge so dangerous that erasing it became the church's highest priority for 15 centuries. Tonight, the 13th apostle code breaks open. The forbidden knowledge Mary carried is revealed, and once you see what was hidden, you will understand why they had to destroy her reputation, to destroy her authority. The Gospel of Mary was discovered in Egypt in 1896, buried in the desert for over 1,000 years. It had been hidden by monks who refused to burn the truth. When scholars translated it, they found something the 4 canonical Gospels never mention. After Jesus' resurrection, the disciples are terrified and confused. They are weeping. They do not know what to do. The shepherd is gone, and the sheep are lost. Peter, the supposed leader, the rock of the church, turns to Mary. He does not turn to John or James, he turns to Mary. And he says something shocking. "Sister, we know that the Savior loved you more than the rest of women. Tell us the words of the Savior, which you remember, which you know, but we do not, nor have we heard them. Read that again in your mind." Peter admits Mary has teachings the rest of them do not have. Private instruction, advanced knowledge. She begins sharing what Jesus taught her. She does not speak of basic parables. She speaks of the ascent of the soul. She speaks of the nature of reality. She speaks of how to escape the material trap and pass the powers of the air. Deep Gnostic teaching that goes far beyond anything in Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. When she finishes, the room is silent. Then, Andrew immediately attacks her credibility. He says, "Say what you will about what she has said. I at least do not believe that the Savior said this, for certainly these teachings are strange ideas." Peter goes further. And here is where you see the real problem, the root of the suppression. He asks, did he really speak with a woman without our knowledge and not openly to us? Are we to turn about and all listen to her? Did he prefer her to us? This is the smoking gun. Levi, the only one defending her, responds with something critical. "Peter, you have always been hot-tempered. Now I see you contending against the woman like the adversaries. If the Savior made her worthy, who are you indeed to reject her? Surely the Savior knows her very well. That is why he loved her more than us." This isn't later Christian fiction embellishing the story. This is a 2nd century text documenting the actual power struggle that happened after Jesus died. The male leadership could not accept that Jesus had given a woman, Mary, authority equal to or greater than theirs. They could not accept a structure where wisdom came through the feminine. The Gospel of Philip, another Gnostic text found in Nag Hammadi, makes it even more explicit. It says, Jesus used to kiss her often on her mouth. The text literally says the other disciples were offended by this. They asked him, "Why do you love her more than all of us?" The Pistis Sophia, another suppressed text, shows Mary asking 39 of the 46 questions posed to Jesus. She is the primary interrogator. She is the one driving the dialogue. Jesus repeatedly praises her understanding as superior to the 12. He calls her, "Thou whose heart is directed to the kingdom of heaven more than all thy brothers." The evidence isn't hidden in one obscure document. It is consistent across multiple independent sources. Mary Magdalene wasn't on the sidelines washing feet. She was at the center, and she carried teachings the institutional church could not allow to survive. To understand the depth of this suppression, you must understand the code of the numbers. The number 13 didn't become unlucky by accident. It wasn't just a superstition about a dinner party. It was strategically cursed, and understanding why reveals the entire conspiracy. 12 is the number of the solar calendar, 12 months, 12 hours of day and night, 12 zodiac signs, 12 tribes of Israel, 12 apostles. 12 represents order, structure, hierarchy. The Sunday, the masculine principle, completion within the system. It is the number of control. 13 is the number of the lunar calendar. There are 13 full moons per year, 13 weeks in a season. 13 was the sacred number in pre-Christian traditions across Europe, the Middle East, and Egypt. All goddess-worshipping cultures honored lunar cycles. Feminine wisdom, the Divine Mother. The number 13 represented the hidden power, the cycle of menstruation, the mystery of birth and intuition. When Christianity became the dominant religion, it didn't just replace the old gods, it demonized them, and 13, the number associated with goddess traditions, had to be destroyed. Making Friday the 13th unlucky wasn't random bad luck. It was psychological warfare. Friday was Venus's day, Freya's day, the day of the goddess. 13 was the lunar feminine number. Combining them and declaring it cursed was declaring the divine feminine itself cursed. Now look at the Last Supper. 13 people were present, Jesus and the 12 apostles. That is the official story. But multiple traditions outside the canon mention that women were also present, specifically Mary Magdalene. The church insisted on counting only the 12 men to maintain the solar masculine symbolism and erase the 13th, to erase the lunar feminine principle. Leonardo da Vinci knew this. He was an initiate of the mysteries. Look closely at his Last Supper painting, the figure seated to Jesus' right, the place of honor, traditionally identified as John the Beloved. Look at the face. It has unmistakably feminine features, no beard, delicate hands, the swooning posture. For 500 years, people have argued about this. But Da Vinci was encoding the truth the church had buried. The 13th was there. The 13th was Mary, and the 13th carried what the 12 could not. The 13th apostle code is the missing piece of the puzzle. 12 represents the structure, the doctrine, the hierarchy, the bricks and mortar, the external teaching that became the church. 13 represents the soul of the teaching, the inner wisdom, the direct knowing, the gnosis that cannot be controlled by institutions. Without the 13th, Christianity became incomplete. A body without a soul. All structure, no essence. All law, no love. So what exactly did Mary carry that was so dangerous? What knowledge did Jesus give her that he didn't give the 12? There are 3 core teachings that, if widely known, would have made the institutional church impossible. First, direct access to source. The Gospel of Mary describes her teaching the disciples about direct mystical experience, not faith, not belief, not rituals, direct knowing. The teaching is clear. Every human being carries a divine spark. The monad is within, and you can access the infinite directly without intermediaries. This is the most dangerous idea possible for any religious institution. If people can access God directly, priests become unnecessary. If wisdom comes from within through Gnosis, the church loses its monopoly on truth. They lose their toll booth on the road to heaven. Mary's teaching was fundamentally anti-institutional because it placed ultimate authority inside the individual. The 12 built the church. Mary preserved the teaching that makes churches obsolete. That is the real conflict. It wasn't personal, it was structural. The institution could not survive if Mary's teaching spread. Second, the Sophia principle. Mary carried teachings about Sophia, divine wisdom personified as a feminine emanation of the ultimate God. In Gnostic cosmology, Sophia isn't a person, she is a principle, the feminine aspect of the divine that existed before creation. Here is what makes this explosive. In the Gnostic creation story, the material world wasn't created by the highest God. It was created by the demiurge, a lesser, ignorant deity who thinks he is the only God. Sophia is from beyond the demiurge's realm. She planted divine sparks in certain humans, those who can wake up and remember their origin beyond this world. This teaching does something the church could never allow. It questions whether the material world and its rulers, both political and religious, have ultimate authority. If this world is a trap created by a false god, why would you obey its systems? Why would you accept the church's authority over your soul? Mary taught that the way out isn't through the church. It is through remembering you. Carry Sophia within you. You don't need saving by an external savior. You need awakening to what you already are. Third, the sacred balance. The 12 apostles represent what Jesus called Logos, the Word, the organizing principle, structure, form, reason. Mary represents Sophia, wisdom, the intuitive principle, essence, flow, knowing. Both are necessary, both are divine. Both came from Jesus. But the church kept only the Logos side, all doctrine, all hierarchy, all external authority. The Sophia side was systematically erased, not because Jesus didn't teach it, but because the church couldn't control it. Mary's teaching is that Logos without Sophia becomes dead religion, rules without spirit, structure without life. And Sophia without Logos becomes ungrounded mysticism, all experience, no integration. The complete teaching requires both. Jesus embodied both. He trained the 12 to carry Logos. He trained Mary to carry Sophia, and after his death, the Logos side won the political battle and erased the Sophia side. This isn't about gender. Men can access Sophia, women can access Logos. This is about two aspects of divine consciousness that must work together. And the 13th Apostle Code is recognizing that Christianity has been running on half its power for 2,000 years because the church deleted half the teaching. In the year 591 AD, Pope Gregory I stood before the church and gave a sermon that changed history forever. He declared that Mary Magdalene, Mary of Bethany, and the unnamed sinful woman who anointed Jesus' feet were all the same person, and he declared her a prostitute. With one sermon, the most prominent female figure in early Christianity, the apostle to the apostles, the first witness of the resurrection, the carrier of Sophia Wisdom, became a repentant whore. This wasn't a theological mistake. This was a calculated move, a masterstroke of propaganda. The church couldn't erase Mary from the Gospels entirely. She appears too prominently. She is there at the crucifixion when most of the male disciples fled in fear. She is the first to see the risen Jesus. She is sent by Jesus to tell the others he is alive. You can't delete her, but you can redefine her. Make her a sinner saved by Jesus instead of a teacher chosen by Jesus. Make her dependent on male authority instead of a source of authority herself. Make her a cautionary tale about sin instead of an example of Gnosis. The prostitute label stuck for 1,400 years. The Catholic Church didn't officially retract it until 1969, but by then, the damage was complete. Most Christians today still believe Mary Magdalene was a prostitute. The slander worked, but destroying Mary's reputation was only the first step. The second step was destroying her texts, the Gospel of Mary, the Gospel of Philip, the Pistis Sophia, and dozens of other Gnostic texts that showed Mary's true role were declared heretical. By the 4th century, owning these texts could get you executed. By the 5th century, Gnostic Christianity was effectively extinct in the Roman world. The texts survived only because some believers refused to let the truth die. They hid manuscripts in caves, buried them in jars, sealed them in tombs. The Nag Hammadi library, discovered in 1,945 inches Egypt, had been hidden for 1,600 years, waiting for a time when the truth could finally be told without being killed for it. The church erased Mary because she represented everything they couldn't control, authority that didn't come from them, wisdom that didn't require them, a direct path to God that made their entire system unnecessary. As long as the 13th apostle was remembered correctly, the church's monopoly was threatened. So, they turned her into a prostitute, burned her gospels, and built a version of Christianity where her wisdom was completely absent. But they failed. The text survived. The truth survived. And now, 2,000 years later, the 13th apostle is being restored. So, how does someone access what Mary carried? How does the Sophia Wisdom activate? Not through belief, not through study, through 3 specific shifts in consciousness that Mary's teaching encoded. Shift 1, from seeking to recognizing. Most spiritual paths are built on seeking God. seeking enlightenment, seeking the truth outside yourself. Sophia Wisdom inverts this completely. You are not seeking what is absent. You are recognizing what has always been present but hidden. The divine spark isn't something you need to obtain. It is what you already are, buried under layers of false identity. The work isn't becoming divine. It is removing the belief that you are not. This is what Jesus meant when he said, "The kingdom of heaven is within you." Not that it will be someday, that it already is right now, but most people cannot see it. Sit in stillness, not to achieve anything, not to reach some higher state, just to notice what is already here. The awareness that is aware of thoughts isn't a thought. The consciousness witnessing emotions isn't an emotion. That aware presence, silent, clear, always here, that is the divine spark. That is Sophia consciousness. And when you recognize it, everything changes. Not because something new arrived, because you finally saw what was always true. Shift 2. Balancing the two principles. Logos is the principle of focused action, clear boundaries, structured practice, decisive will. Sophia is the principle of receptive stillness, intuitive knowing, flowing with what emerges, trusting the process. Most people are wildly imbalanced. Those who are all Logos become rigid, forcing, controlling, trying to think their way to enlightenment, practicing techniques mechanically without presence. They have structure but no soul. Those who are all Sophia become ungrounded, floating in mystical experiences with no integration, receiving insights without manifesting them, all flow with no form. They have soul but no structure. The 13th Apostle Code is both. Logos provides the container. Sophia provides the content. Masculine principle builds the structure. Feminine principle fills it with life. Both are divine. Both are necessary. And the teaching is incomplete without both. Jesus trained the 12 to be masters of Logos, organizing communities, preserving doctrine, building the structure. He trained Mary to be master of Sophia, direct knowing, wisdom transmission, preserving the essence. The tragedy is that the church kept the structure and deleted the essence. But chosen ones can restore both, not by choosing one over the other, by integrating both within themselves. Shift 3. Trusting inner knowing over outer authority. The most radical teaching Mary carried is this: you do not need anyone to tell you what is true. When you access the Sophia wisdom within, you know directly, not because someone told you, because the knowing arises from the divine spark itself. This doesn't mean reject all teachings. It means test everything against the Sophia within. Does this resonate with the deepest truth inside you, or does it create dependency on external authority? Mary's teaching creates sovereignty. Church teaching creates obedience. The Gospel of Mary shows her telling the disciples, "Don't create rules beyond what the Savior commanded, or you will be ruled by them. Don't let anyone, including this video, become the authority over your inner knowing." The Sophia spark within you is the ultimate teacher. Listen to it first. Trust it above everything else. When you do this, the game changes entirely. You are no longer looking for someone to save you or tell you the truth. You are recognizing you carry the truth inside you. That is what the church couldn't tolerate. That is what they erased Mary to suppress. And that is what activates when chosen ones remember the 13th Apostle Code. There were 13 apostles, not 12. The church erased the 13th because she carried what they couldn't control. Mary Magdalene wasn't a follower. She was a master. She wasn't a prostitute. She was an initiated teacher of the deepest mysteries. The 13th Apostle Code is the recognition that half of Jesus' teaching was deliberately erased. The half that empowers direct knowing. The half that recognizes the divine spark within every chosen one. The half that makes religious institutions unnecessary because it places ultimate authority inside the individual. The 12 represent Logos, structure, doctrine, the external teaching. The 13th represents Sophia, wisdom, Gnosis, the internal knowing. Christianity kept the body and killed the soul. All organization, no essence. All belief, no knowing. All hierarchy, no liberation. But Mary's wisdom didn't die when they burned the books. Truth doesn't disappear when you suppress it. It goes underground, it hides, it waits, and when the time is right, when enough chosen ones are ready, it resurfaces. That is happening now. The Nag Hammadi texts were found. The Gospel of Mary was translated. The truth about the 13th apostle is spreading, and millions are realizing what was taken from them. Not just knowledge, power. The power to access the divine directly. The power to trust inner wisdom over external control. The power Mary carried and the Church spent 500 years trying to destroy. The Sophia Wisdom is simple but revolutionary. God isn't only outside you in temples and hierarchies. God is inside you as the divine spark. Liberation isn't believing the right doctrines. It is waking up to what you already are. And you don't need anyone's permission to access what is already yours. This is what Mary taught. This is what Jesus gave her to carry. This is what the Church erased because they knew if people understood it, their control would end. And this is what is activating right now in chosen ones who recognize the truth underneath the lie. The 13th apostle isn't lost. She was hidden. But the hiding is over. Mary Magdalene is being restored, not as a repentant sinner, but as the wisdom keeper she always was. And the Sophia consciousness she carried is waking up in everyone ready to remember. You don't need to believe this. You need to test it. Sit in silence and feel for the awareness that is aware. That presence that knows without words. That is Sophia. That is the 13th apostle's gift. That is what they tried to erase but couldn't. Because you can't destroy what is built into consciousness itself. If this resonates not as new information, but as something you have always known. If the 13th apostle code feels like a remembering instead of a learning, comment, "The 13th remembers" below. Because this isn't about me teaching you something. This is about you recognizing what Mary carried is the same thing you carry. The code is broken. The silence is over. The Sophia returns.